honestly, and really before we get started, I really want to talk about when we start talking about food sovereignty. There's a difference between food justice and food sovereignty. Food justice is just like we were talking about, giving out the lunch and the breakfast to the children. Food sovereignty means that you outright own the land where the eggs and the chicken and the milk and the vegetables are grown. So, that movement came out through a coalition of indigenous people coming together and saying that we're going to come up with our own constitution of that, how we want to own our own land, food sovereignty. And so, so I would have everybody to look up food sovereignty, what that means. And really the 6 pillars of it is to focus on food for the people, put the people first, and, focus on food for people, put people's need for food at the center, build knowledge and skills on how to grow your own food, work with nature, value the food providers, localize the food system, and have control locally, because food is sacred. Now, when you ask me about where the food comes from, I went and did a little research here in Dallas. I went to 4 local grocery stores. I went to 2 in the 75216 area where I used to live at. And I won't name the stores, but they were African, they were set in African-American communities. When I went into one of the stores, the vegetables looked so bad, I walked out. When I talked to some of the people that work in the store, they told me that their milk and egg truck come only once a week. I asked them how far did their meat come from. They told me that the meat comes from Colorado and Mexico. It's not there's no meat packing plants here. So that means that meat that comes into that grocery store has to come from Colorado or Mexico. When I was looking at the fish, it comes from Vietnam, Thailand, Guatemala. So the food comes from many different areas. There's nothing really locally produced here as far as going into those African-American and brown stores that's in that community. Now, when I went to the other one in my area, which is a predominantly upper class white community, I walked in and I talked to the guy at the meat market. He told me that their truck comes every day. The milk truck comes every day. The egg truck comes every day. Their food comes from as far as Canada. It comes from all over. Canada, New Mexico, California, and everything is implemented in. And plus they work with local farmers here in Texas. But I only saw a couple of Black farmers, and they were mentioned on an edible magazine that they have. So the majority of the food source that comes in from these stores that I talked about, they are outsourced. Now, the watermelons and tomatoes and things like that, they might come in, but the big products, that comes in from another place. And so then that goes back into empowerment. When we had the storm in February, when those trucks could not get through, you can hardly get catfish now because of the ice storm. When the ice storm, because it killed all the catfish. When the ice storm came, and this is dealing with transportation, when those trucks could not get through, the stores were bare. So that means due to transportation or weather or lack of gas, you may not get the food that you need. And so what happened in that case is that a lot of people in our community, like Feed the People, Not My Sons, Black Cross, Daughters of the Diaspora, Dallas Stop the Eviction, we did what was called a commissary is very necessary, did what was called mutual aid. We made sure that we got food to the people. Now I had COVID during that ice storm, so I couldn't get out. Those groups that I spoke about, they brought groceries to us. So because we couldn't get to the grocery store, a lot of us had COVID, I would have been really, really messed up if it had not been for that. So we had to take control of those situations of feeding our people. So again, if the large organizations are not able to do it, we have to depend on mutual aid and community-based organizations to do it.